Imagine you pick up a radio and all you hear is static. Not the gentle white noise of a dead channel. The hard, buzzing static of a signal that was there, and then stopped. Now imagine that radio is the only thing tethering you to the outside world. And it's been silent for 6 days. Joel Perkins pressed the transmit button one more time. His fingers were so swollen from frostbite he could barely feel the plastic. The temperature inside the fuselage of the downed Cessna had dropped to -19 degrees Celsius during the night. He had 2 protein bars left, 1 emergency blanket half torn, and a satellite radio that had inexplicably stopped transmitting on day 7. He was 214 kilometers inside the Yukon wilderness. No roads, no trails, no footprints in the snow but his own. In what happened over the next 7 days, and what finally crackled through that dead radio on day 13, is a survival story that will stay with you. Because what saved Joel wasn't a rescue helicopter, it was a stranger. Joel Perkins was 44 years old, a wildlife biologist from Whitehorse, Yukon, who spent more time in the backcountry than he did in his own kitchen. He knew how to read weather. He knew how to read terrain. He'd done 6 solo survey flights in the past 3 years alone, mapping caribou migration corridors for the territorial government. He was not careless. That's the part that matters. On the morning of November 3rd, he kissed his daughter Maya goodbye at the kitchen table. She was 8. She was eating toast with the deliberate focus only an 8-year-old can bring to toast. He told her he'd be back in 4 days. She didn't look up from her plate. He laughed and said it again, louder. She still didn't look up. He kissed the top of her head instead. He drove to the airfield before dawn. The weather forecast showed a clear window. 36 hours of stable air before a front moved in from the northwest. Joel planned to be back before the front arrived. He filed his flight plan, logged his emergency transponder, and tucked a handheld Iridium satellite communicator into his vest pocket. He had done everything right. The Cessna 185 lifted off at 7:12 a.m. The sky was the particular shade of violet you only see in the Yukon in November. Not dark, not light, something between the two. The spruce forests below looked like a carpet of dark velvet stretching to every horizon. It was, Joel would later say, one of the most beautiful mornings he could remember. And he was 90 minutes into the flight when the oil pressure gauge began to twitch. He tapped it, standard pilot reflex. The needle settled, then dropped to 0. The engine doesn't roar when it fails. It coughs. Then it dies. 1 second, Joel has airspeed, lift, and options. The next second, he has 3,100 feet of altitude, no power, and a wilderness below him that offers nowhere to land. He keys the radio immediately. Standard procedure. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Cessna CFJKP, engine failure. Approximately 214 clicks northeast of Watson Lake. Descending mayday. He transmits 3 times. He doesn't know if anyone hears him. He doesn't have time to wait for an answer. The spruce forest below is unbroken. No clearings, no frozen lakes, nothing but trees in every direction. Joel is scanning hard, unbanking in wide turns to buy altitude and distance. Every 1,000 feet of height gives him roughly 2 kilometers of glide. He has maybe 4 minutes. Then he sees it. A narrow strip of frozen creek bed threading through the trees, maybe 300 meters long, maybe 18 meters wide. It's not a runway. It's barely a suggestion of one. He has no other choice. He sets up his approach dead low, gear down, flaps full. The Cessna is gliding at 70 knots. The trees are rushing past on both sides like walls. He clips a spruce on the right wing. The impact screams through the airframe, and the plane yaws hard left, slides off the ice, and cartwheels once through the tree line before stopping. The left wing is gone. The windshield is shattered. Joel's head hit the instrument panel, and he comes to with blood on his face and silence so complete he can hear his own heartbeat. The temperature outside is minus 27 degrees Celsius. He's bleeding from a gash above his left eye. His right ankle is badly sprained, possibly fractured. The Cessna is on its side in the snow, fuselage cracked but mostly intact. He has his vest, his pack, his satellite communicator. He starts transmitting immediately. Nobody answers. The first 24 hours are the most dangerous in any wilderness survival situation. Not because of cold, but because of panic. Joel knew this. He'd taught wilderness safety courses for the government. So the first thing he did after the crash was force himself to sit still for 3 minutes and breathe. Then he took inventory. His survival kit was still in the rear baggage compartment, which had survived the impact. Inside, a folded emergency mylar blanket, a waterproof fire-starting kit with a ferro rod and tinder, a small fixed-blade knife, 2 liters of water, and 5 protein bars. He also had the clothes on his back: merino base layer, insulated vest, a mid-weight shell jacket, no insulated pants, no dedicated winter boots. He was dressed for a cockpit, not for surviving November in the Yukon. His first priority was shelter. The fuselage of the Cessna, cracked and angled as it was, provided wind protection on 3 sides. He pulled the torn seat cushions free and laid them under his body to insulate from the snow. He wrapped himself in the mylar blanket. He ate 1 protein bar and allowed himself half a liter of water. Then he tried the satellite communicator. Strong signal, transmitted beautifully. He sent a distress message with his GPS coordinates, then a verbal mayday on the emergency frequency. He set it to transmit automatically every 15 minutes and tucked it inside his vest to keep the battery warm. He was sure someone would come in 24 hours. Nobody came. By day 2, his ankle had swollen badly enough that walking was limited to short bursts. He gathered wood carefully, rationing his energy. The fire was critical, not just for heat, but for signaling. He fed it green spruce branches to create white smoke columns visible from the air. He kept it burning in 3-hour cycles, sleeping in short intervals in the fuselage. The satellite communicator showed a solid signal. He kept transmitting. On day 4, an SAR Twin Otter appeared on the horizon. Joel saw it through the broken windshield and felt something crack open in his chest. Pure, overwhelming relief. He scrambled out of the fuselage, waving the mylar blanket like a flag, screaming even though screaming was useless against a turboprop engine at altitude. The plane banked north. It didn't turn back. It had been searching a different grid. 40 kilometers east of Joel's actual position. His flight plan had listed an alternate survey route. The SAR team was working from that route, not his actual GPS position. His transmitted coordinates had never been received. The satellite communicator had been sending, but something in the damaged antenna connection had been corrupting the GPS data packet on every transmission. The search plane disappeared over the ridgeline. Joel sat in the snow for a long time. On day 5, and he discovered the communicator's antenna connection was intermittent. He tried to reseat it with his knife, but the connector housing had cracked in the crash. He could see the signal meter flicker when he pressed the antenna in with his thumb. But the moment he released pressure, it dropped. He used a strip of duct tape from the repair kit to hold it. Transmitted again. Day 7, the communicator went silent. Battery dead. The cold had destroyed it faster than expected. He was now completely cut off. His food was running low, 3 protein bars remaining after a week. He melted snow for water using his camping pot over the fire. His ankle was a dull, constant throb. He had developed a cough that worried him. Deep, wet, rattling. The temperature had not risen above minus 22 in 6 days. He thought about Maya, about her toast, about the way she hadn't looked up. He thought, She's going to look up when I get home. He kept the fire going. Day 10. The storm arrived 3 days later than forecast, but when it came hard. Wind at 80 kilometers per hour, visibility 0, temperature dropping to -34. Joel had reinforced the fuselage shelter with branches and snow blocks, a trick he knew from a survival course he'd given to forestry crews 8 years ago. The snow actually insulated. The wind howled over the top of it, but the fire went out. He couldn't restart it, the wood was soaked. His ferro rod threw sparks, but nothing caught. He burned his last scrap of tinder trying. He tried dried spruce bark from inside the fuselage. He tried the paper pages from his logbook. Nothing sustained. The temperature inside the shelter dropped to -29, and he was in his mylar blanket. He was in his vest and shell. He was out of options. His core temperature began to fall. He knows this because he started to feel warm. That's the deadliest moment in hypothermia. When the cold stops hurting and your body begins to convince you that everything is fine, that is when people die. Joel recognized it. He taught this exact module. He started shouting. He made himself do jumping jacks inside the fuselage, slamming his good foot against the metal floor until his hip ached. He sang every song he knew, loudly, badly, into the screaming wind. He did not stop moving for 6 hours. When the storm broke on the morning of day 11, he was alive, barely. His core temperature had dropped, but not to the fatal threshold. His hands were clumsy. His thinking was slow, but he was alive, and then he noticed something. Near the back of the fuselage, jammed between the torn cargo netting and the broken rear bulkhead, was the aircraft's original VHF radio, the panel-mounted unit that had been ripped from the instrument panel in the crash and thrown backward. It was cracked. The display was dark, but when Joel touched the power button, nothing. He stared at it. He found the aircraft battery connection, still wired, still live by some miracle of the crash. He stripped the radio's power lead with his knife, touched them together. The radio flickered, static, weak, broken, but alive. He held the transmit button and spoke. He transmitted on 121.5 megahertz. The aviation emergency frequency, the one every pilot, every controller, every aircraft in the sky is required to monitor. He transmitted every hour, short bursts. In his GPS position from memory, he'd memorized his coordinates on day 1, a habit drilled into him by an old bush pilot who told him once, "The day you need your coordinates is the day you won't be able to read them off a screen." He transmitted on day 11, day 12, day 13. On day 13, at 14:47 local time, a response came, not from a rescue center, not from a SAR aircraft, from a bush pilot named Anatoly Marchenko, 61 years old, flying a Piper PA-18 Super Cub between 2 remote fishing lodges. He was 22 kilometers north of Joel's position when the weak VHF signal cut through his headset. He almost dismissed it as interference. He didn't. He circled twice, confirmed the transmission, relayed Joel's coordinates to Whitehorse ATC on his second radio. Then he descended, dangerously low, in marginal visibility, and made a pass over the creek bed. He waggled his wings. Joel saw it. He dragged himself out of the fuselage and onto the ice, waving the mylar blanket with both hands above his head. He was crying and didn't know it until he tasted the salt. Anatoly couldn't land. The creek bed was too short, too rough, too exposed. But he stayed overhead, circling, talking to Joel on the radio in broken, warm, absolutely certain English. "You stay, you wave, helicopter is coming." The SAR helicopter arrived 51 minutes later. Joel couldn't walk to it. 2 paramedics came to him instead, crossing the ice in their orange suits, and he thought they looked like the most extraordinary sight he had ever seen in his life. He didn't say anything eloquent. He said, "I have a daughter." One of the paramedics nodded. "We know," she said. Joel Perkins survived 13 days alone in the Yukon wilderness in November. Temperatures during his ordeal ranged from -19 to -34 degrees Celsius. He lost 11 kilograms. He suffered moderate frostbite to 3 fingers on his right hand, a fractured right ankle, a grade 2 hypothermic episode, and early-stage pneumonia. He kept all his fingers. The SAR team that had been searching for him had covered more than 4,000 square kilometers in 10 days. They had never come within 40 kilometers of his actual position. He was found because a bush pilot almost dismissed a weak radio signal as interference. Almost. Anatoly Marchenko never accepted any award or recognition for what he did. He gave one interview to a White Horse newspaper and said only this: "I heard a man. You don't fly away from that." Joel returned to work the following spring. He still flies. He still surveys caribou. He still files his own flight plans with handwritten alternate routes. And now he also files his GPS track manually with a secondary contact before every flight. Maya, when he walked through the front door of their house, gaunt, on crutches with most of his beard frozen off, looked up from the kitchen table. She didn't say anything. She just held on. The truth that every survival story eventually teaches is the same truth. We are not built to live alone. Every person who comes back from the edge comes back because of someone else. A pilot who stays on frequency, a daughter who needs you to come home, a stranger who doesn't fly away from a voice in the static. We survive because of each other. That's not sentiment, that's physics. Here's what the official SAR report didn't mention. And when the paramedics retrieved the aircraft wreckage, they found Joel's satellite communicator. The one he'd believed was transmitting his position, the one he'd assumed was working, had never successfully sent a single GPS coordinate after day 1. Every transmission had gone out as corrupted data. For 13 days, he was invisible. But the aircraft's VHF radio, the one thrown backward in the crash that he hadn't discovered until day 11, had been transmitting a faint, automated emergency chirp on 121.5 megahertz from the moment of impact. For 13 days, that broken radio had been quietly announcing his position. Anatoly Marchenko wasn't the first person to hear it. He was just the first person who didn't fly away. Next week, a family of 5 rents a houseboat for a lake vacation. By day 2, and they're sinking in open water, and the nearest coast is 3 kilometers away. One of them can't swim. If stories like this remind you that humans are built to survive anything, you belong on this channel.